If you don't stay down and you never quit, come on over here and sit on the far end of the bench.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. What a weekend of football. Playoff football is delivering like it has been the last couple seasons. I think since last year's divisional round when each game was decided by 3 points or less, we've been treated to probably some of the best playoff football, most competitive playoff football that we can remember for quite some time. And we're here to talk about it all. We're going to recap all the games that have happened so far. As you're listening to this portion, it is before Monday Night Football, so the Bucks and Cowboys have not played. We're going to wait. We're going to record that portion for it tomorrow, so you'll see us kind of time travel, and we'll look a little bit different. We're recording this Monday afternoon. We'll record the post-Bucks and Cowboys game Tuesday evening after I get done with my class. It'll all come out to you guys on Thursday as you're listening to this, getting ready for just the divisional round that is shaping up. We'll talk about it more towards the end of the show. We're going to get to all of that. First, we're going to recap the wildcard games. But this is episode 123 of the Far End of the Bench podcast. Jimmy Pilato and Nico Bryant. Nico, you're rocking the teal because Duval County, you say it all the time, the Chargers are going to charger, the Chargers chargered. We're going to talk about the game a little bit more in depth, but just overall thoughts and feelings from this super wild card weekend. We made fun of the name. It's lived up to the hype the last couple of years. We made fun of the name when they first made the change, but what did you think of the game so far?
The name is fit perfectly. I don't care. We can meme it all we want now, but man, super wild card weekend. It had everything you could want. You had the underdogs scratch and claw and almost pull out victories. You had third string quarterbacks come in that almost shocked the world. You had one of the biggest comebacks in football history happen. I mean, everything in a box of cookies this weekend had, and it could not have asked for a much better weekend to kick off this postseason. Last year, the postseason started off very similar, and we had one hell of a season postseason. So I'm looking for big things to continue, and man, all I can say is I'm not surprised. Chargers are going to charge you, Jimmy. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not surprised.
We say it a lot on this show, and before we get rolling with everything, we want to make sure to mention follow at FEOTB Pod. That is where you can find us on all of our social media. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're watching this. If you watched the live reaction that I did last night as we're recording this on Sunday night following the Bengals game, be sure to check it out again this week. I might even throw in a pregame show for you guys on Sunday. But yeah, we're rocking and rolling. And also presented by Variety Sports Network, which is continuing to expand now with VSN Collegiate and VSN NFL. You can find pretty good independent sports content from all over, and we're super excited and proud to have been a part of them now for coming up on around a year, I think, probably about 6-8 months, maybe something like that. It's been a good ride so far. And speaking of Variety Sports Network, that brings us to our first sponsor of the episode, Row One Brand. Follow them on Twitter at CoolStub. You can go to row1brand.com, use code VSP15. You get 15% off your order from anything from the art gallery when you use code VSP15. All right. I think we should just jump right into things. First game, San Francisco 41, the Seattle Seahawks 23. First of 3 divisional rematches. So this is the third time these two teams have played. Geno Smith leading the Seattle Seahawks, who at the beginning of the game, when Brock Purdy looked like Mr. Irrelevant, a guy that was thrown into the mix, is listening to a lot of shows, and when you kind of break it down the way that it happened, in the last 10 weeks, Brock Purdy went from the backup to the backup. A guy that never expected to see the field. He might travel on the bus and wear a hat on the sideline so that he could signal in the plays if needed, if the headset goes out in the quarterback's helmet. He is now playing in NFL postseason football, and he struggled initially, found his footing a little bit here, finished with a stat line 18 of 20 for 332 yards and 3 touchdowns. The second half, he really went off. And it turns out it's pretty easy. When you have some of the best weapons in all of football, the NFL, it's pretty easy to be successful in the second half. What did you see from this San Francisco team? How'd you feel about them having to weather the storm a little bit?
Well, first of all, Brock Purdy is 7-0. The guy has not lost a professional football game in his career. The 49ers now have won 12 in a row, I believe. It's either 11 or 12 in a row, dating back to the regular season. And this is the hottest team in football, in my opinion. This team can beat you in so many different ways. You look at that first half. Purdy was trying to do way too much. Way too much. In the second half, Shanahan said, calm down, buddy. You know what? We're going to get Debo in space. We're going to get Ayuk in space. You're going to get one of the best dual threat running backs in the history of football in space, and we are going to see what this offense can do. And 16-17 at halftime, 31 unanswered. Maybe it wasn't 30. It was something like it was 30-something unanswered points to end the game for the 49ers, and I just saw pure domination. Look, the Seahawks. The question here is what do they do now? Because Geno Smith is as great as a story as he's been this year. He's not a guy in the playoffs that's going to be the favorite going into any football game. In the playoffs, Geno Smith is who he is. Plain and simple. And look, they have a golden opportunity with the 5th pick coming up in April, whenever the hell the draft is. So that's where their decision comes from. But this is a pure domination standpoint, and the 49ers put on a performance to show out to who they are, and put a notice on everyone in the NFC.
They did, and their defense being able to keep them in a game where I think if Brock Purdy makes those same mistakes against some of the other teams just in the NFC side of the playoffs in general, those are mistakes that are going to put you in a 3-4 score hole. And I don't know if Brock Purdy is capable of doing making a comeback of that size in the postseason. I don't know if he can pull a Trevor Lawrence, which is a game that we're about to get into. But for now, he did exactly what he needed to. And it is interesting where the Seahawks land, because did they need to win this game? No, they were probably a year ahead of schedule. It was happenstance that they made the playoffs. They know that they have the 5th overall pick. They got rid of the cancer that apparently that is Russell Wilson. Like, they're sitting at the perfect spot here where they didn't really need to do much, and the San Francisco 49ers just needed to make sure they made that statement. Let's talk about how confident are you after seeing the way that he turned himself around? Are you thinking that Brock Purdy can lead this team next week to a divisional round win? We still don't quite know who they're going to play. Depends on who wins tonight between the Cowboys and the Bucs, but they will get the winner of that matchup. How do you feel about Brock Purdy moving forward next week?
It's not necessarily that I believe in Brock Purdy. I believe in his defense to obliterate the shit out of the two teams that we're going to be watching the game tonight of. I think that both these defenses could hold the Bucs and the Bucs and the Cowboys to under 20 points. And if that happens, then yes, I believe in Brock Purdy to do that, because all Purdy has to do is, like I've been saying, is get people in space. We joke about Shanahan choking, and we joke about Shanahan being on a hot seat and doing all this, but there's a reason why every quarterback that stepped on the field for the San Francisco 49ers has been successful. People forget, before even Jimmy Garoppolo was brought in, C.J. Beathard had these boys playing hard. They were on a cusp of a playoff run back in 2016, maybe 2017. This team has a lot of great components about it, and Shanahan knows exactly what to do to make life easier on Purdy. So no, I don't trust Purdy to a point where if he was on any other team in the playoffs right now, I would not trust him. But because of the system he's in, because of the people around him, I absolutely trust him to make the right play. Because all Shanahan had to do at halftime was sit him down and be like, Brock, take it easy, buddy. All right. Realize what you have to do. Realize what's at stake here. The moment is not too big for you. You have some of the most talented. You have one of the most talented football teams around you in the league. Do what you're asked of, and you will win football games. People forget one of Mike Shanahan's things when he didn't have Elway that made the Broncos so successful with Jay Cutler and Jake Plummer and sorts was he didn't make them do the big plays. He said use what you have around you. Use the Rod Smiths. Use the people around you to make life easier to get you successful. That's exactly what he's doing with Brock Purdy. And right now, there is a hotter team in football in San Francisco, and it is hard to see a lot of teams testing what this defense can do, and a lot of teams being able to stop what they can do offensively.
The only matchup that really scares me for them is that matchup that seems inevitable now against the Eagles in the NFC Championship. I think. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on with this game, or are we good to probably move on to?
I'm probably good. Yeah, I'm
the
probably good. I do expect this to continue for San Francisco. I'm not picking my favorite right now for who they play against, but I do see very similar outcome for them.
Yeah, and real quickly, did just want to mention for the Seahawks, Kenneth Walker and DK Metcalf did look like guys that you can build some sort of an offense around if you get a good quarterback. Kenneth Walker, 15 carries, 63
Good
yards, and a
defense. That
touchdown.
defense is fucking horrendous. My God.
Yeah, that you need a defense to stop the other team as well. But DK Metcalf did finish with 10 catches, 136 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He's had really, really good showings in the past 2 seasons for the wild card round that the Seahawks inevitably lose in. But now we get to talk about what I'm sure you've been chomping at the bit. You wanted to get your opinion out there. We were texting while it was happening. I told you that I turned on their Sirius, and like right after the game, they weren't even talking about the Chargers losing. They were debating whether or not Barry Bonds should be in the Hall of Fame and whether he's one of the best players of all time. This was there was no way. Like, we were at a party. My cousin is having another baby. We were at like the baby sprinkle. And we were watching the game. I go, oh, it's 27-0. The Chargers should have this. Eckler had scored 2 touchdowns. I was feeling good about myself. Herbert looked like he was on a roll. And just from that point on, Niko, there are times where you lose, and there are times where you give it away so badly. And the fact that they still have a fan base, and they do, because the people who like the team really like the team, and they try and stick with them. The fact that those guys stuck with them after they moved out of their city, have not given them anything to cheer about since 1994 when they got blown out by the San Francisco 49ers in the Super Bowl. You had all those years where you have the number 1 defense and the number 1 offense, and you still miss the playoffs somehow. Like LaDainian Tomlinson, Phillip Rivers, Junior Seau, Antonio Gates, Sean Merriman. Who else? Oh, they've been loaded forever. You always say that they should be so much better. And I guess you can take it away. At being a fan of a division rival, what have you seen? What is the Chargers' Achilles heel? We were talking about it. Why do the Chargers play not to lose instead of playing to win? What is it about their team that forces their hand to do that?
It's a Charger way, Jimmy. Plain and simple. It's a Charger way. I can sound like a hater. Look, if you're a Chargers fan listening to the show, you don't have any shit to gripe against me because my team won as many playoff games as yours did this year. And right now, like, look, you can take the team out of San Diego, but you can't take the San Diego out of the team, okay? You can move them to this brand spanking new stadium. You can have the face of the one of the most talented quarterbacks in football on your team. You can have Herbert's face all over interviews and commercials with SoFi Stadium and popping them like no other. But the Chargers will always be the Chargers. It's plain and simple. I have nothing against Justin Herbert. I especially have nothing against Austin Eckler, and nothing against that team except for their franchise and the shit talking that they think they can do against my team when they have never done anything. Ever in the history of their team, they've never done anything. And I am just so flabbergasted why people think that because Justin Herbert's Justin Herbert, he can break this curse. Phillip Rivers, I'll say, is a Hall of Famer. He is a Hall of Famer, and you had Phillip Rivers, Antonio Gates, LT, all the names you just listed off, Jimmy, and that team still never got to a Super Bowl. Never. Those talented players never got to a Super Bowl. So all you need to know about this franchise. And look, Staley, there's question marks in that Chargers locker room. One, why does Austin Eckler not get those touches in the second half? You talked about his numbers, Jimmy. 35 yards. Majority of those 35 yards and those 2 TDs were in the first half.
2 possessions. It was those first two possessions where he scored. They didn't give him the ball again.
Why? Look, first of all, Mike Williams is injured. You're depending on a 36-year-old, whatever, not 36-year-old, but 30-year-old, some odd Keenan Allen to be your number one receiver, and Gerald Everett, who has been tossed around the league more than the average NFL player, and be like, you know what, you two go win us a football game instead of the guy who scored the most touchdowns in football this year. And the one of the best running backs in football, pound for pound. I mean, I don't understand it one bit. And look, when I saw that touchdown right before the half of the Jaguars, I knew something was cooking. I did. I'll be honest with you. I knew something was cooking because I was like, this is going to be a Charger being a Charger. The Chargers being the Chargers right here. Because Doug Peterson, all Doug Peterson did when he went to the locker room was like, boys, we could not have played a worse first half. Plain and simple. It could not have gone much worse. Whether it be the first tipped ball interception, the second, the third, or the fourth interception, it could not have gone worse. He went out there and said, T-Law, I don't care what happened in the first half. This is a new ball game. It's 0-0. All you have to do is outplay the other team, and they will give you the game. That's exactly what Jacksonville did. And by no means did Jacksonville's defense was this almighty stopper. It was a constant shooting of the foot of the Chargers, and it was a constant offensive pressure the Jaguars did with Trevor Lawrence, Christian Kirk, and company. Look, I'm wearing my Jaguars jersey. Jimmy asked where I got this from. I went to a preseason game there, so I'll lig my nuts. So I will jump on the Jaguars bandwagon for this week, and last week and this week, because they're playing another division rivalry of mine. So like I said, I cannot get enough of what this team has done offensively. And Urban Meyer showed to be the problem because this team is a lot of ways different, but a lot of ways the same. And look, they have better weapons, they have better things going around them. And Trevor Lawrence's second year, he's showing why he was the number one pick. He's showing why he was leaps and bounds better than Zach Wilson and the rest of that draft class. So look, I was jagging off this weekend. It didn't take till the second half, but boy, will I be jagging off again this weekend because man, this Jaguars team. I'm not comparing it to the Bengals of last year. It's a lot different, but I'm telling you right now, this team has a lot of hope and a lot of promise, and that's all you want from Jacksonville.
Yeah, I think they showed, Trevor Lawrence being able to bounce back and throw those four touchdown passes to four different receivers. I have it in there as well. Travis Etienne, he was kind of a disappointment in his first season. He had that injury, wasn't able to produce, but when you saw him play at the collegiate level, he has difference maker type speed. I'd compare him to like a Reggie Bush and a Darren Sproles, where he's a little bit smaller, but he's got that blazing speed. So if he gets into space, he can make it hurt. I think he averaged about 8 yards a carry or something like that every time he got the ball to him, ended with 109 yards. Evan Ingram, talk about a guy who's been on the island of misfit toys and like been discarded by everyone. Evan Ingram has been discarded by everyone, yet he continues to be there, almost 100 yards receiving and a touchdown. And it was just the mental toughness. Like Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl for a reason, still had a lot of boneheaded mistakes. Like I think that if you make those plays against the Chiefs, it's going to come back to hurt you. I don't necessarily see the Chiefs as being in trouble. Now, the Chiefs have played down to their competition. That's also getting into some of the other discussion that we're going to have, getting a preview of the Chiefs and Jaguars game. But the mighty 4 seed, that 4 seed is something else. The 4 seed in the AFC has not lost except for in the Super Bowl, and the 4 seed in the NFC, I guess, is still up for debate as we're listening to this because that is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But the 4 seeds last year, we talked about it. The Rams and Bengals were both 4 seeds and made it all the way to the Super Bowl. It was a good day. It was a good way to end it.
The way the Jacksonville used Evan Ingram too. Like, look, I want to jump in on this because Ingram he's not a tight end in their system. He's listed as a TE, but by no means is he a tight end. He is a long, lengthy guy that they put in the slot and said, you know what, you're going to be bigger than every slot corner that puts against you. You run out routes, you get bigger and be big over people, and that's exactly what Doug Peterson did with Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz was by no means put his hand in the ground, as he could block better than Ingram. But the reason why Zach Ertz was so effective in Philly was his dual threat ability and his ability to get up over smaller corners, and that's exactly what they're doing with them and Ingram. And like you're about to say, one of the biggest comebacks in football history, wildcard weekend history. Look, I'm not surprised. I'll say it again. I'm not surprised at all. Plain and simple.
It ended up being the third largest comeback in NFL history. It was one of the weirdest ways to end the first day of Super Wildcard Weekend. Kind of set things up. We were talking about it a little bit. I was thinking, well, at least we had the home team curse going, so all the home teams had won up until that point. As long as that continued out, you said you thought it was more of the teams that were better front to back. I thought that was a little interesting because if you talk to a lot of people, if you went around the different NFL media sources that you could have had, I'm sure that people on Variety Sports had the same opinion, that the Chargers were a better team than the Jacksonville Jaguars. I guess, to each his own. Maybe it's a little bit different for us seeing them up close and personal and 2 times every season, but how is Brandon Staley still – does he have a job? Like, there's no way – there's no way. They're going to have to get rid of him. Right?
There's serious questions in LA right now because, look, news coming out on Monday morning. Jim Harbaugh has decided to stay at Michigan. You know what that means? The front runner for Sean Payton is solely the Denver Broncos. It was a 2-man race, it seems, and a team that Broncos, look, people that are saying Broncos don't have a first pick, they do this year. They have San Francisco's pick, which will be at the end of the first round, and they have the first round pick next year. I don't want to give up both. But the question comes out there, and if you're the Chargers, do you risk losing Sean Payton to a division rival when you have an all-world talent at quarterback? An all-world talent at quarterback, you do, and you get him a chance to be under one of the most successful coaches in not NFL history, but recent history. Consistently, the Saints were division champs and consistently in the playoffs under Sean Payton's tenure. And right now with Brandon Staley, that's a question. Because whether it be playing all your starters week 17 in a meaningless game where you lose or you shoot yourself in the foot so badly where you have the 3rd biggest comeback in playoff history. I don't understand how the Chargers did not do that Monday morning. Because right now, the fact that you listen that we're talking about this Monday night, I'd be very surprised if he's fired because the decision would have already been made. And I am so surprised that the Chargers are willing to stick around with him because I would bet to see something very similar next year, where Chargers are on the cusp of the playoffs. They make the playoffs. They're going to be the first round exit because they won't win the division. Plain and simple. And the Chargers are not and not in general a good road team at all. They never have been. And consistently not winning your division, are you willing to take that gamble with Brandon Staley for another year? And that's the question Chargers fans are going into. And right now, I would sure as hell not be. I am not blaming Brandon Staley completely, but the man, some coaches are meant to be coordinators their whole lives. Plain and simple. Okay? And Brandon Staley is a hell of a coordinator, hell of a defensive coordinator, hell of a mind. But the man cannot manage a team to where it should be. And the Chargers right now, you have to go all in. Because right now you're looking at 2 teams in your division where right now the Raiders are going to be on the quarterback hunt, possibly TB12. The Chargers are going to be on the hunt for a coach, possibly. You have the Broncos who are already hunting for a big-name head coach. And you have, obviously, the almighty Chiefs. Right now, the Chargers could be on the back end of things again, and everybody's still going to be looking up to KC if you don't make a move. And right now, the Chargers have to make a move if they want to get themselves out of the Charger way.
It's going to be kind of a wild offseason to see where Sean Payton ends up and see how that shakes things out in the division. Wasn't as competitive of a division as people were expecting from last offseason, if you remember, but it will be interesting nonetheless. Before we get into Sunday's games, those were all the games from Saturday. We are brought to you by SeatGeek as well, proud sponsor of the Variety Sports Network and the Far End of the Bench podcast. Here on episode 123, we don't have any playoff sports going on right now, but I know, Niko, you were probably at the Nuggets game the other night where Jokic did that step-back 3 for the dagger. You can get these awesome seats through SeatGeek. You'd also be supporting Variety Sports Network. All you have to do is download the SeatGeek app, and then on your first purchase after you make an account, use code VSN. You get $20 off the first purchase that you make in the app. So be sure to check that out. It helps us out. It helps Variety Sports Network out, and it continues to kind of bring that legitimacy to what we're doing here. We appreciate everybody listening and everybody that's able to support
Use
us.
that code to go watch the best team in basketball. Use that code to go watch the defending Stanley Cup champions who are finally on their way back right now. Go if you're in the Denver area, you have to use it because look, there may not be any football for us to watch in this from our home teams, but two incredible teams playing right now that you got to go watch, and we will be using that code, and all our friends will be using that code, I'm sure, to go see the two of the best teams in this state.
All right, let's continue moving on. Moving to Sunday's games from Super Wildcard Weekend. Things started off with the Buffalo Bills. Still look like they're playing with just heaps and heaps of energy. Turned out to be a lot better of a game than people were anticipating, and we can kind of talk about maybe some of the reasons why. First thing that I wanted to mention, Skylar Thompson, I did not realize – did you realize that that's only the third quarterback that's ever started an NFL game who also played at Kansas State?
Third?
That's the third ever quarterback to have played at Kansas State started an NFL game yesterday. That was Skylar Thompson. I have his stat line rolling across the bottom of the screen. I don't think that you can put a ton of blame on him. He obviously wasn't going to be able to get it done, and outside of him, the way that the Dolphins beat the Bills earlier on in the season was they just ran Raheem Mostert like directly straight at the Bills defense. They weren't able to stop it. They tried to do a lot of different things yesterday. They tried to get the ball to Tyreek Hill and people like that. It didn't work. And you end up with 42 rushing yards as a team, and you lose a game 34-31 that I really don't think you had any business being that close in.
In my opinion, yeah, they didn't have any business being that close, but they had a chance to win. They more than had their chances to win. Look, the amount of drop balls I saw out of Miami is something to talk about, because we joke about the cold, we joke about the weather in Miami versus Buffalo this time of the year, but that cold gets to you. It does, and it gets your hands colder. It gets the ball a little harder. That's what she said. It gets the ball a little harder, and it's a little more difficult. Jimmy, the Dolphins on that 4th and 1 had 51 seconds. They had a play clock malfunction where the play clock rolled off 21 seconds. They reset it, gave them a whole another 30 seconds, and then they still couldn't get the play off in time, where they were still in the huddle with 5 seconds on the play clock. Look, McDaniel has done a lot of great things this season, coaching these boys the right way. But that is one of the biggest mistakes you could have asked for. 4th and 1, you have a chance for a QB sneak where 95% of the time it works on a QB sneak. And we'll talk about the 5% that happened in the game after this. But with the 95% chance of the QB sneak on a 1-yard run, you have to think you have a good shot. And then you can put yourself in a position where you get to overtime. And when it gets to overtime, you never know what may happen. And look, this Dolphins team, I said it all year. I think they were one of the most talented offensive teams in football. Jalen Waddle is a hell of a young receiver, and Tyreek Hill, we already know who Tyreek Hill is. But there's a lot of question marks going this offseason. If you're the Dolphins, do you take a swing on Lamar? If you're the Dolphins, do you risk losing McDaniel and trying to go after Sean Payton like you supposedly did 3 years ago? Do you risk going after Tom Brady or Jimmy Garoppolo and not taking the risk that Skylar Thompson or Teddy Bridgewater is your playoff quarterback? There's a lot of questions going around in Miami, and Buffalo showed the kinks in their armor. They did. Look, that offense, they could have put the game away. The Buffalo Bills could have easily put the game away, and the banged-up offensive line showed where they're inexperienced. And their defense allowing 31 points to Skylar Thompson is worrisome this coming weekend against the Bengals, and if they go further, against Patrick Mahomes. Plain and simple. And there is question marks what this Buffalo Bills team can do after this weekend, more than it is about the Dolphins, in my opinion.
And speaking of the Buffalo Bills, like you mentioned it, their offense did go like really, really cold. I was listening to their radio broadcast. I wasn't sitting in front of the TV for a majority of yesterday, but I got the XM app, so I was listening to them, and that was one thing that they kept bringing up. Like, it started off really good, but you have these stretches where nobody can score, and Stephon Diggs didn't get a touchdown yesterday. Gabe Davis caught a touchdown. The defense was kind of bailing them out, keeping it close. And I worry, like Josh Allen throwing those 2 interceptions, one of them wasn't his fault, but you also had the fumble, the scoop and score. There's a lot of things that the Bills allowed to happen in this game that if you do that against a team that is better, I'm going to say it like the Bengals. I'm not trying to be cocky or anything, but it is. They have been one of the better teams all season. You make a mistake like that against them, they turn it into points for themselves. The Miami Dolphins did that against you. Like you have no room for error. You have to play just as perfect of a game as everyone else. I think they maybe you don't see these professional athletes read their press clippings all that much, but it seemed like the Bills just thought, oh, we're going to roll out. And once we got this 17-point lead, they're just going to roll over and we're going to be able to, they're going to go 1-2-3 Cancun. No, they fought your ass. Like they earned their vacation to Mexico. The Miami Dolphins can go and celebrate and know like we're a couple pieces away.
As hard as we could.
We're a couple pieces away. If we get a quarterback that doesn't have his brain get turned to mush and bounced off the turf like 4 to 5 times a season, we should be fine. They should be able to turn themselves around. What did you think of that Stephon Diggs stat line? Obviously, still a lot of catches and a lot of yards, but kind of interesting to see him being held out of the end zone, especially when the Bills were able to score 30-plus points, and we're still talking about how disappointing of an offensive effort that was.
Look, there's a lot of different things that this Bills team can figure out. Like I said, I think the way they used Dawson Knox too early in that game will help this team in the long run. But we keep going back to the one thing this team still doesn't have. I don't trust James Cook. I don't trust Devin Singletary still. I trust Gabe Davis. I trust Stephon Diggs. I trust the likes of Dawson Knox, plain and simple. But the running back game is what your leading rusher most weeks of this season has been Josh Allen. And that's plain and simple going to be the death of you. And look, Josh Allen, yes, he should be able to use his legs to his advantage to beat teams. He absolutely should be. But if you're the Buffalo Bills right now, how's anyone going to respect your run game when Singletary does not do what he should be? And James Cook has some good burst runs, but you completely avoid that the rest of the game. Like I said, James Cook had some runs on Sunday where you were like, damn, give him some more touches. Like he was a damn good back at Georgia. People forget. And you give him the touches and space, he can make some legs with this play. But right now he's getting one touch every 20 minutes. And right now that is killing it. And if look, you ask any running back or you ask any offensive lineman, you get away from the run game for so long, those legs stiffen. They stiffen. After pass blocking for 5 or 6 plays in a row, maybe 2 or 3 series in a row, that hurts. But when you only get one touch every 20 minutes, that's going to hurt you in the long run. You got to get a rhythm going. If it's James Cook's going to be your guy, let him be your guy. But you have to have that dual dynamics to be a Super Bowl winning team. And right now, the Buffalo Bills still do not. And wholeheartedly, the game was 34-24. If the Bills ran the ball hard like they should have and not passed every second and third down on second and 8, third and 8, they could have covered this game very easily. And instead, they gave the Dolphins hope. And that's the biggest question going into this Bills for this weekend and going forward. It's that, and it's the inability to stop different offenses with different quarterbacks.
I do think that the 3 times in a season does play into effect, but what you're talking about with those offensive linemen and having to pass block so often, you see a lot of these offensive linemen in the NFL, even though they're professional offensive linemen, they're not good at pass blocking. They're better at run blocking, and it's more fun to run block because you get to go forward, and instead of having to catch a 280-pound athlete that's sprinting full speed at you going backwards, you can kind of dictate the pace, and they just weren't doing that. They had no intention of trying to make their running game work. They were solely going to rely on just the passing game and the arm of Skylar Thompson, which turned out to be not the most successful strategy. Yeah. So they ended up going down 34-31. Then we have this game here, probably the biggest surprise maybe of the weekend. We both said that we didn't trust the Vikings, and I let you know that we were taking some shots on my end because, Raleigh is a Vikings fan, and unfortunately, I was correct. I was just correct way too early, and they blew it. They blew it so hard.
I tried to tell you, Jimmy. This Giants team, look, it doesn't look. Kenny Galladay got snaps, which is funny on Sunday. Funny enough, and he hasn't had snaps all year outside of Week 17. But this Giants team, Brian Dable is showing what a good head coach can do. Plain and simple. This is the exact same Giants team that Joe Judge or whoever it was. I don't know if it's Joe Judge, but whoever got them to 3 wins last year. They only had 2 signings this offseason. I saw a stat of. The Giants only had 2 signings this offseason, and one of them was a backup quarterback. So this Giants team is very similar. You saw, look, Daniel Jones is being put in places where he can be successful. They are saying, Andrew Jones, you and Evan Neal be lock and step and be smart with each other and run on and let Saquon do his business. And Saquon is doing everything he can want, so much more. This is the exact model that the Colts did last year. People forget. Why was Jonathan Taylor so successful last year? He had a strong offensive line that he didn't make Carson Wentz do so much, but just be the smart play. That's exactly what Daniel Jones is doing to you. And you tie that in with a defense that flies, absolutely flies to the ball. This Giants team, I can't remember the last time the Giants made the playoffs and lost in the wild card round, Jimmy. Can you? Because I can't. It has been a long, long time since they have made the playoffs and not at least made the divisional round. And we are seeing a strong, strong presence from what Dable can do and what he enlisted in these boys. He has them believing they can beat anybody. They can beat anybody. And Minnesota, man, oh man. Is it not so perfect that with a game on the line, 4th and 10, Kirk Cousins throws a 3-yard out to the tight end? I mean, what are we doing here, Jimmy? What are we doing here if you're Vikings, if you're the Minnesota Vikings? You have Jay Jettis. You have Dalvin Cook. You have Adam Thielen. You
TJ Hawkinson.
TJ Hawkinson. You have all these dudes, and you have everyone run go routes, and you have the tight end run a 3-yard out. I mean, what are we doing here? This defense for the Minnesota Vikings is so piss poor. So piss poor. Like the Vikings the Giants did whatever they wanted to the offense, the Vikings offensively, anything they wanted. And if Minnesota somehow would have squeaked out this game, they would have got their shit fucking wrecked in the next round. Plain and simple. By either San Francisco or Philadelphia. And I wholeheartedly believe that. And the Giants just put them out of their misery and said, maybe Kirk Cousins isn't your guy, and maybe this defense is not it, because they aren't. And as far as I'm aware, this Giants team, a team that was one of the laughing stocks of the league last year, showing that why a good coach team can go take you so far in the playoffs.
Coaching does have a lot to do with it. I also think, too, look at that stat line from Daniel Jones. 24 of 35, 301 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, no turnovers. Also had 17 carries for 78 yards. We've known that he's a better runner than passer, but he is at the point now, like, we took for granted what a smart guy he was coming from Duke. He learned the fact that if I don't turn the ball over and I find these openings, like the offense is built for me. A lot of these young quarterbacks think that they're just going to be able to exist and play. The offense is built for you to be successful. Brock Purdy is doing it up in San Francisco. Joe Burrow has done it the last couple of years in Cincinnati. And now Daniel Jones somehow turned himself into a somewhat feasible quarterback. Who knows? Who knows? I don't think that they're going to be able to beat the Eagles. But again, you get that divisional third matchup of the season. Anything can happen, and you aren't surprising anyone. Like the only benefit that the Eagles have is they had the bye week this week. But like Daniel Jones deserves a lot of credit, and Saquon Barkley too, because I think Saquon Barkley, he came in with so much hype. He was not getting a very fair shake so far. I think both those guys have turned it around. And also, who would have thought that we would be talking about Isaiah Hodgins with 105 yards in the
we
playoffs?
Finally know a receiver's name, Jimmy.
I know. I learned one.
We learned one.
I got one.
Darius Slayton and now Kenny Galladay. I know actually a couple after watching that game.
Yeah, no, there was a few that we ended up coming across there. But
this Giants team is showing why coaching is such a massive part of it. Such a massive part of it. And having 3 different coordinators in 3 different years, they finally found the right guy to set you up in perfectly. And they finally found the right person to lead you to the promised land and Dable. And Daniel Jones is just being put in positions where his life can be made so easy. And the Vikings did all that in a box of cookies to help him.
They did do a lot to help him. And I mean, do you think that because he beat the other guy that people were saying in contention for Coach of the Year? Does this win Brian Dable Coach of the Year over guys like Kevin O'Connell? Maybe some of the other. You could say
the question marks come from Sirianni. I think that's the front runner. I would say it's between him and between those two. I think O'Connell did a great job, but you look how bad that division was, and the Lions finally almost had a chance in the playoffs because of that division. So I don't think O'Connell. Look, it's a regular season war. It absolutely is, but I think right now the front runner has to be Sirianni. It's plain and simple. It's going to be Sirianni. I would argue and say maybe. Maybe McDermott can be put in that conversation for everything he got put through at the last end of the season and still getting his team ready to play. There's a couple teams that can be argued. Maybe you put run DMC with big old Dan Campbell over there in Detroit, possibly doing that. I think that Dable does have a very, very good argument though.
I think I agree with you there. Last game so far of the weekend, like we said, you will be seeing us time travel, and we'll talk about the Bucks and Cowboys game. We'll also preview the game that's going to be affecting later on in the show as well. But my Cincinnati Bengals they survived. I'm going to say it that way. They did survive. It was going to be a tough matchup, and I know everybody talks about in the AFC North the Steelers and the Ravens and how much those two teams hate each other. It's mutual across the division. Like everybody just loves to beat the piss out of everybody else. Marcus Peters early got that personal foul penalty, almost got himself kicked out of the game, but it was a slugfest back and forth. And I give the Ravens and Tyler Huntley a lot of credit. And maybe Tyler Huntley just solidified the decision that I think we all know the Ravens are going to make and move on from Lamar Jackson. He might be a guy that can, he could be feasible depending on how else you need receivers. That's number one. You need receivers. Tyler Huntley needs to remember you can throw it to Mark Andrews because if you look down there, only 5 catches on like 6 targets, 73 yards. There was a lot of other things that were in effect. And why, it turned into one of the best Bengals moments that I can probably tell you I've ever witnessed. But why, if you're a yard and a half away from the goal line, you can't stick the ball up in the air like that? You were so far away. You were never going to break the plane. Never, ever.
He was very far away, but you can combat that with Trevor Lawrence's QB sneak. And the Jacksonville game where he was so far ahead. But the difference between Trevor Lawrence's long arms and Tyler Huntley and his height versus between the two is a little bit different. Okay?
And Logan Wilson is apparently a volleyball savant.
A volleyball or watch a lot of the Kime Mutombo highlights in his free time, blocking shots. I mean, look, I never thought about that. I'll be honest with you. When a guy sticks a ball over, it's almost like, fuck, it's over. No, be a blocker there. Why the hell not? It's an open ball. He wants to stick the ball like that. Absolutely do that. And look, this game should have solidified, in my opinion, why the Ravens needed Lamar Jackson. Do they win the game? I don't know without him. I don't know. But I'll tell you one thing. If Lamar is in on that last drive where it's 17-17 and you're on the 1 yard line within the red zone, this game could have gone the other way. Plain and simple. And I don't understand how the Ravens can even fathom thinking about moving on from him. Because right now, if you're Lamar Jackson, they showed why they're nothing without you. Plain and simple. I know you joke about him being a running back and all this. The Ravens are not a playoff team without Lamar Jackson. They are a good coached football team with a above-average defense that barely snuck into the playoffs. And they're a team, in my opinion, that without Lamar Jackson will be drafting a quarterback in the first round of the playoffs. First round of the draft. Plain and simple. This team cannot go as far as Tyler Huntley. Plain and simple. They cannot. And if we're being honest with ourselves, you can say, well, if we had Lamar, we probably would have won the game. Cool. You're right. Maybe you're right. But plain and simple, you're the reason why he's not playing. You're the reason why he's not playing. You can say, well, maybe if we had Lamar. Well, you're the reason why you didn't have Lamar. Lamar's reason for not being out there is not his fault. It's not Mark Andrews' fault. It's not J.K. Dobbins' fault. It's the Baltimore Ravens organization and their inability to trust the people that they have. You let Lamar Jackson walk to New York. You let Lamar Jackson walk to Miami. You let Lamar Jackson walk to any of these playoff teams like Tennessee and get himself a chance like that. They will be a playoff team right away and continue to be a favorite in their division. But the Ravens right now with Lamar Jackson, their inability to put people around him is going to be the end of this football team for the time being. Obviously, things change over a long tenure, but it'll be the end of this football team. And like I said, you may have won that game with Lamar. You may. Who knows? You never know. But plain simple, you shot yourself in the foot to get yourself to that point.
Yeah, it was very interesting. And I don't know how you think that quickly to, one, knock the ball out of his hands, and then also when Sam Hubbard catches that and decides, oh, yeah, let's go ahead and run this thing all the way back. That is a big man. And two, think about that. He was born in Cincinnati. He went to Ohio State and now has been playing for the Bengals, led them to a Super Bowl last season, and has the longest fumble recovery return in NFL history to win. That was the game-winning play. That was the game-winning touchdown. Won his hometown team their playoff game, moves them on to the next round. And I know we're going to get to it. Joe Burrow didn't look great, but he also – behind that offensive line, I'm also going to give that offensive line a little bit of credit. They could have looked a lot worse. It could have been worse. Jackson Carman. Yeah, but I mean, they actually held up for a majority of the game. There was like 2 plays that everybody's going to focus on. But I watched when Jackson Carman came in, I was scared shitless. I was scared shitless. I watched him play. He wasn't doing terrible. He was able to stand up, and I know it's the Ravens. They're going to have some different guys that they're going up against. There's no Vaughn this week. I don't know if they're going to get Vaughn this week. Whether they have Vaughn or not, they're not going to have Micah Hyde. So there's some things where I'm like, it sucks. I wish that they were able to do better.
But on top of Ravens, that, Jimmy, like going off of your statement there, that offense should have scored a lot more points, right?
The Ravens play they play against this offense 3 times. They know they're the ones who practice beating this Bengals offense the most with Jamar Chase. They know exactly what they have to do, and they did that the entire game last night. They rolled a safety over to Jamar Chase's side no matter what. And it kind of worked. It kind of didn't. They just figured out other ways to get them the ball. And, yeah, they should have scored. There was a lot of different miscues and stupid things like the sacks in the red zone suck. And that's why I have the stat in there. Joe Burrow was sacked 4 times last night. I feel like that's going to be something that throughout this entire playoff run, we're going to be counting how many times Joe Burrow gets sacked. He might not even get sacked the most, but it's going to be the biggest deal when he does because that's all anybody can think about. But
I'm going to give the Bengals the same criticism I gave the Bills. That's plain and simple. You should have put this game away. Plain and simple. Okay? You should have put this game away. You absolutely had your chances, and you didn't. Plain and simple. This is a team where Tyler Huntley comes in. Yes, it's a divisional opponent. The Bills also play a divisional opponent. They lost 2 in the regular season, so I can have that argument both ways. But you should have put this game away. Absolutely. And you won off of a 98-yard fumble return touchdown, which was one of the best plays of the weekend. Absolutely it was. But in my opinion, you should have beat that team by a lot more than 7. You should have. Plain and simple. The Ravens were crippled walked their way into the playoffs. Barely got in there. They're playing their second quarterback where they didn't know they didn't name their starter until game day. They didn't know if it was going to be Tyler Huntley or whoever the fuck they have behind him. Anthony Brown. And there was all conversations being like, well, Anthony Brown could be the starting quarterback. Who knows? That plain and simple you should have put them away, and so should have Bills. And that's where the conversation comes back to, will the Chiefs be the back on top of this AFC? Because right now, look, we haven't seen the Chiefs play, and we'll see them play this weekend. But the Bills and the Bengals gave me more question marks this week than more positive notes that they could win the AFC. Plain and simple. Both teams did that so facing Tyler Huntley and facing the likes of Skylar Thompson. Because right now, Eli Apple has to guard Stephon Diggs. It's a lot
No, he
different.
doesn't. No, he doesn't.
Well, either way, he's on the Jimmy. Do you don't think they're going to move him over? They're going to. Okay, either way, Mike Hilton or Eli Apple. One of those guys is going to have to.
And somebody's gonna have to guard Jamar Chase.
I agree. I agree.
No, I know. I know.
I agree, but the difference is that they held Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle in check in regards to Rashawn Bateman and fucking I don't even know who the hell no receiver is for the Ravens is. It's a lot different offenses, a lot different receiving core that the two teams have faced. A lot different.
Yeah, and my rebuttal to that would be I trust Lou Anarumo as the Bengals defensive coordinator, especially with what he's put out on the field in his last 4 playoff games now. He knows how to make adjustments. I really don't have that much worry about this team. I think really, honestly, when it comes down to the Bengals and the Bills this week, it was a look-ahead spot for both of them because everybody knew going into the wild card weekend that if they both won, they were going to have that rematch for the first time since the Damar Hamlin situation. So I really think that both teams were really distracted. They probably both read their press clippings a little bit too much, like I said at the beginning too. And they probably both thought, oh, we could just roll out of bed and beat the shit out of this inferior opponent. And you should have. I think I agree with you that they should have beat them by more, but you didn't. You found a way to get it done. And sometimes you need your defense to make an incredible play. Sometimes you need somebody to step up, and I think the Bills and the Bengals both had that. And I can't wait to see. I am very excited. I felt like we were robbed. I know it was terrible circumstances and it's awful to say, but think about how those, if nothing happens to Damar Hamlin in that Monday night game, think about the kind of football we would have been treated to over the next 3 quarters because those two teams, it was the most successful Monday Night Football matchup of all time. The two teams had the most amount of combined wins going into a Monday Night Football matchup ever in NFL history. And we weren't able to see it, but we get another chance now. And I think that's a good way to transition. You'll see the Bucs and Cowboys recap. You'll see us talk about that game here in a second, but we're going to get everything else finished up because we do have lives outside of this. I mentioned I have to go back to class this week. Nico's got work, so we're going to get everything as filled in as possible. First game, and this is also going to be into our pick'em as well. So divisional round. First game on Saturday, the Jaguars, they're jagging off. They're going to Kansas City, Missouri to take on the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are favored at 8.5 right now is the line that I'm seeing. Nico, I know it's probably going to make you sick, but I feel like it's almost impossible to pick anything different, I guess, unless you really surprise me here. But I'm interested to see who you have for your first pick of the weekend. I'm
going to tell you right now, the Jaguars cover. Plain and simple. There isn't a worse covering team in football than the Kansas City Chiefs. I guarantee you this will be an 8.5 cover for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I am going to put $50 on it. I'm just straight up with you. But I don't think Jacksonville does win this football game. I do think the Chiefs do win this football game. But I think Jacksonville keeps it close. Plain and simple. Kansas City does not put teams away. They have not done that all season long. For some reason, at the end of games or the beginning of games, they just fall asleep. And because of the talent Patrick Mahomes has, because of the talent of Travis Kelce and company, they just wake up and then they turn on at the right time. They win football games. But they do not cover. So if you're listening to this show, take Jacksonville with me plus 8.5 before it gets even worse. And if it gets worse, I'll take it worse. I will take 9.5. I will take 10.5. Kansas City does not cover. And I'm not just saying that because I'm wearing a Jaguars jersey. They do not cover. Look at the statistics. They don't. And look, Kansas City, I think they'll win this football game. I'm not dumb. But because they're more talented and they're more ready for the spotlight. But we could be in a situation where I hate to keep comparing these two teams, but they are divisional rivals. This could be a Titans versus Patriots match, a matchup of 2019, 2020, whatever it was, when they went to the playoffs, and everyone was like, the Titans will come up and coming. They got great pieces around them. They got good coaching, good defense. They have good offensive weapons, but are they really ready to beat Tom Brady and the Patriots? And Jacksonville may surprise some people. I would not be surprised if this is a close game, like I said. And Look, I'm going to be reading the Jaguars. I don't want the Chiefs again. I don't want a fucking neutral site playoff game. Fuck that. And I don't know how. I don't care how I get it, but I don't want a neutral site playoff game. I want another home team representing in the playoffs. So I'm going to go Chiefs here, but give me the Jaguars to cover.
I'm trying to look it up. Do we know Trevor Lawrence's stats against the Chiefs? Oh, he's only played them one time and he's lost. So it's not a situation where we have Joe Burrow as undefeated against the Chiefs. I'm also picking Kansas City, but I do think Jacksonville can make Kansas City feel them. And Kansas City's been they've been letting teams hang around and letting teams make them work a lot harder than they have to. Maybe it's kind of a subliminal strategy because they've tended to kind of fuck around in the playoffs, and I think if they fuck around in the playoffs this year, they'll find out. But yeah, I don't know if Jacksonville has quite the firepower yet, and we could be wrong. I mean, they do have a lot of offensive weapons. That defense is going to struggle, I think, having to try and cover Kelsey and Juju Smith-Schuster and then contain Patrick Mahomes. But their offense should be able to make this thing close. We might get a shootout, which wouldn't be the worst thing in the world on a Saturday afternoon. I'm also going Kansas City, though. I don't think that I'm going to pick an upset in that game. NFC East matchup. The Giants going to the number 1 seeded Eagles. Eagles coming off the bye. Finished the regular season 14-3. Jalen Hurts is back and should be fully healthy. The Eagles in this one, throw it up there on the screen for everyone. The Eagles are favored at 7.5. That is a huge line to me for a team that the way they ended the season. I know that they've been the number 1 seed all year, and they earned it. They earned the bye. I don't necessarily have that kind of confidence in the Eagles. I think I have confidence in that they're going to win, and that's who my pick is going to be. I think that the Birds pull it off, and we're going to see this San Francisco, Philadelphia matchup in the championship game. But 7.5, that feels like somebody from Philly. One of the mob guys from Philly called over to Vegas. He's like, hey, make the Birds 7.5 point favorites. They're gonna fuck up the Giants. I promise you. They beat them by 10. But make it 7.5. Make the suckers bet it. And I feel like that's gonna be bad. I would take the Giants if I was a betting man.
I probably will be taking the Giants here because I am a betting man and I am a smart man. And look, this game has all the feelings of a late 2000s football game when we had Vic versus Eli Manning, or we had the likes of Donovan McNabb versus Eli. Like this has all that in a box of cookies. Yes, it's a lot different. Jalen Hurts versus Daniel Jones, big step down in my opinion, but this has that old ragtag feeling. I hope this game is a late game. I don't know if the times have all come out, but I do hope
it's the 6:15 game on Saturday.
So it's the Saturday night game, and I think under the lights in Philadelphia, this game has the grittiness of an old pound-out football game where two good offensive lines can go up against one another, and two great running games, one with Saquon and one with the Eagles with Jalen Hurts and company. I love the Eagles here. I do. Plain simple, I do love the Eagles here. I'm going to be betting the Eagles, but I'm not going to be betting the Eagles. I'll be betting the Giants with the 7.5 spread. But I do expect Philly to win at home. That's the difference here. Giants are a good road team, don't get me wrong, but I think that Philadelphia is better coached and a better all-around team than the Giants faced last week in Minnesota. So that's why I'm going with the Eagles.
All right, we're both on Philadelphia there. I think the next game is probably where we're going to maybe start to differ. And that means we are at the last one here before you're going to see us time travel, and we'll go back in time, talk about the Bucs and the Cowboys, and then pick the game to see, depending on who wins that game, is going to be playing San Francisco in the Sunday night slot. The Bills and Bengals will be the early game on Sunday afternoon. They're playing on CBS. I'm going to have to sit through Tony Romo and Jim Nantz talking about DeMar Hamlin and all of that situation and the emotions. And yes, all of that is going to be very important. I guess as the Bengals fan, as a fan of the team that didn't have the guy almost die, I would just rather focus on the football game. I don't think that we need to bring anything else into this. If DeMar Hamlin is in the stadium, I feel like that's a bad omen for my team. I think that the Bengals are good enough to beat the Bills. I think that the Bengals, if nothing happens in that game the other week, I think that the Bengals have a good shot of beating Buffalo. I don't think that it's a huge talent gap like we were maybe thinking at the beginning of the season between the Chiefs, Bills, and Bengals. The top three in the AFC can all beat each other, and they can all win the Super Bowl, in my opinion. So in that, I am sticking behind my guys. I've been picking my guys. They've been kind of carrying me through. I'm not picking against the Bengals in this situation. I'm going to be all Bengaled out once again. I was head to toe yesterday. I'll be head to toe on Friday teaching at school. I'll be head to toe on Sunday afternoon watching the game. I'm nervous as all hell. But, I'm hoping that we have a good live show afterwards, which we're calling now Live from the Jungle. Niko made a background for me on StreamYard. So we'll be live both on our YouTube channel and on our social media. It was live through our Twitter page the other night. So be sure to check that out. I'm picking the Bengals, Niko. Where do you stand on this game?
First of all, these lines all fucking stink. 5.5, 7.5, 8.5. Oh my God! First of all, my mind goes straight to picking Buffalo to win. I'll be plain simple with you. I think it's a team of destiny, and I don't think you're wrong in saying that the Bengals can win. But in my opinion, I think both these teams can win the AFC. In my opinion, in my pick, whoever wins this game is going to be my pick to win the AFC. Plain simple. I'll just be straight up out there with you. Whoever wins this game out of Bengals and Bills, I think they beat Kansas City, or I think they beat Jacksonville. I will be picking the Bills here. I don't like the spread at all. I hate the spread. 5.5. That is way too much for. I think this game is going to be a field goal game. I think this is going to be a field goal win game, and I think that's how closely tight these two teams are. For all that I said about the offensive firepower with the Bills and versus the Bengals, yes, the thing we have here is I would love to see what the over under is, because the strength of the Bills is their passing game. The weakness of the Bengals defense is the passing game, plain and simple. The weakness of the Bills offense is the running game. The strength of the Bills defense is their inside pressure and the boys inside. And if you go flip side around on that, you can do it's the exact same way. The Bills secondary is not what it could be, and the Bengals passing game is one of the best in football for a reason. So I think this over under could be really. I think this could be a game where it's a high scoring affair. In my opinion, I think we see a similar game to the Kansas City Buffalo game last year. I think this is almost similar, if not the same type of football game, where it's back and forth, or we may even see an overtime in this football game. I will go Buffalo. I think the home field does play in effect. I think if this was in Cincinnati, I think that would help. It would help the Bengals, but I think going to Buffalo is a little bit different. I think that Buffalo has. I'm not saying that Cincinnati has nothing to play for, but I am saying I think the Bills have a little bit more edge and a little bit more things going their way to think that maybe Buffalo can pull this off. I don't like the 5.5 spread, though. I hate that with all bit of me.
I'm glad that we didn't both pick the Bengals, because I need somebody to be doubting. And last year it was me when you picked the Bengals as they continue to move through. Yeah, I'm good with flipping sides on you on that. Remember, each game that we pick right out of this round is worth 15 points. After we get through, we're going to talk about – actually, those are all the games that we're talking about so far. We're going to wait. You guys will see us talk about the end of the Bucks and Cowboys game here in just a second, then we'll also make our picks. So far, Niko is leading. He got 5 out of the 6 games last week for a total of 50 points. If Tampa Bay wins, he finished with a perfect 60. I got 30 points, so 3 out of the 6. And if Dallas wins, I'll end up with 40. So it's close. It still can go.
I'm perfect right now.
You are perfect right now. It still could go either way, depending on how this next round and then the championship worth 25 and the Super Bowl worth 50. But as it stands now, yes, Niko is perfect. And hopefully after when you guys are hearing this next section of the podcast, I'm in a little bit better of a mood, because I don't want to lose the regular season and the postseason pick them again. I just don't want to do it. But with that, let's go ahead and throw it over to ourselves following Monday Night Football and the conclusion of the wild card round to the playoffs here on the Far End of the Bench, episode 123. You guys are seeing us. It's not magic. We did time travel. We're not going to give away our secrets. Yeah, no, we're not going to give away our secrets. This portion of the podcast that you're listening to, like we mentioned, is being recorded Tuesday night. The snow is starting to fall now in Denver. I should stay in the screen while I'm on my own podcast. The snow is starting to fall in Denver. The light rail was backed up about half an hour, so it took me a little bit longer to get home. But, man, first off, we're going to get to a point of discussion that I think every sports show is going to have be obligatory the Tom Brady segment, so we'll get to that. But first off, just starting with the game itself. Cowboys 31, Buccaneers 14. Tom Brady loses to the Dallas Cowboys, and the Cowboys get their second playoff win in the last 30-plus years. So round of applause. All those guys who got your Super Bowl tattoos this season, it's totally going to work out. It's not like it hasn't worked out for the past 35 or whatever years that it's been. It's totally going to work out this year. Niko, I'm going to throw the stats up there, starting off with the Cowboys. I mean, the Cowboys came out with kind of a point to prove. Other than their field goal kicking, their PAT kicking, looked pretty damn good. And Dak seems like he's on a mission. 4 touchdown passes. Tony Pollard got a majority of the carries. And then you got guys like Dalton Schultz, CeeDee Lamb stepped up for a touchdown. But what were your thoughts after watching last night's game and how things played out?
My thoughts are plain and simple. The Cowboys looked like the more ready team. Todd Bowles was a coach that seemed as though he was not ready for the position. Byron Leftwich, a guy who had a lot of job opportunities last year, just got fired, and he did not seem like he was up to task. Playoff Lenny, five touches for 12 yards. Real playoff Lenny for you. I saw an absolute embarrassment of a team by Dallas Cowboys on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Cowboys dominated every aspect of the game except kicking the ball through the uprights, which, let's be honest with ourselves, if you were to guess what may happen next week is a possibility that coming back to bite them in the ass, I'd be very surprised because, look, when you miss that many kicks in a row, it gets your head. It absolutely does. Not 1 in a row, not 2 in a row, not 3 or 4 in a row. It's embarrassing, and to do that this late in the season with the postseason at hand and a team that's firing on all cylinders defensively, my God, this defense flew around the ball. We knew all about Micah Parsons. We knew all about Trayvon Diggs, but the guys in the middle, Leighton Vander Esch and company, just flew around the ball, and that's what I was most surprised with in general. And then the poise of Dak Prescott. I've been saying it for a couple of years now. Dak Prescott is just is so underappreciated what he does for the Cowboys. Cowboys would not be where they're at all without him. And if he were to leave at any point, I would have loved my team to jump on that bandwagon. But look, he is doing great things with what he's doing, making a smart play. And right now, Mike McCarthy has those boys playing hard.
It's a good time for me to remind you that the Broncos were going to draft Dak Prescott, but did not because he missed his flight out for his pre-draft interview. So he could have been a Broncos quarterback, could have been the Broncos quarterback for the last however many years. We all know this. Same old song and dance with this podcast. I don't know. There's a lot of people there. There's a heavy contingent out there that say he's the black Kirk Cousins, for lack of a better phrase. I know that you see the same Twitter that I do, so it doesn't bug you, but I may have kids listening to this show. This is a family show, but like he hasn't. Last night was his first step towards winning the big game. Now you got to win in the divisional round, make it to the conference championship game for the first time since the 90s, and you've solidified yourself as, yes, this is more than just a game manager quarterback. This is more than just a nice quarterback to have who's going to pad his stats. He was playing to win last night. And we talked about, the difference between playing to win and playing not to lose. I think that the Cowboys the last few years have been plagued by the fact that, Mike McCarthy's their head coach. That's never going to be good for anybody. The guy just doesn't look like he knows what he's doing half the time. I will say he does have probably two of the better coordinators. I think at least better, maybe not their scheme, but like player-wise, they have the two best coordinators, Kellen Moore and Dan Quinn. I really think that the Broncos should hire Dan Quinn, but I think they deserve a majority of the credit. And then to your point about the Buccaneers coaching staff, I have the stats rolling up there now. Tom Brady, in possibly his last game in the NFL, 35 of 66. Yeah, you threw the ball 66 times. You were down
5 years old.
You were down for he's icing his arm. He might not have a right arm after the end of today. He's going to have to learn how to play quarterback left-handed. 351 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. The thing that stands out is the 58 rushing yards as a team. When this team won the Super Bowl, when Tom Brady solidified himself as the GOAT of the sport, they did it on the back of a hell of a running game. Darius Geis out of USC was running on all cylinders, and they also had
playoff Lenny. They also had Rojo as well. Like this team, I don't know. Look, 66 throws is abnormal for Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, and Patrick Mahomes.
I hate it when they throw it 30 times.
And here we are, the 66 throws. I mean, look. Look, Tom. We'll have this Tom debate here in a second, but I don't understand what the game plan was at all. Look, I get it. After the first drive, there, the Cowboys drove right down the field on you, score a touchdown with these. And look, you had all the momentum, right? You had a chance to tie the game up or get a lead. You threw the pick in the back of the end zone where Tom had a miscue or whatever, and it just seemed like they'd never recovered from that. After that point, they had the running game going for a little bit on that first drive, and then just said, "Nope, Tom just win the game for us." One thing Bruce Arians did really, really well with this team was he told Tom, "You're going to be the leader of the team, but you're not going to do everything. It's going to be you're gonna get Mike Evans in space, you're gonna get Chris Godwin in space, you're gonna get Gronk in space, and you're gonna let your running backs carry you." Look at the great Tom Brady teams of the past 20 years: Randy Moss, Julian Edelman, Rob Gronkowski, Aaron. We don't need to name his last name. You could go down a list of weapons he had on successful teams. The unsuccessful teams had people around him that he just did not use. And this is a game where you're like, Tom, if this was 25-year-old Tom, maybe he could have won this game for you with 66 throws. But I don't understand how you can do 66 throws and think that you're going to win a playoff game like this against a team that has as good of a pass rush, first of all. One of the best pass rushers in the league with Parsons and not Dexter Lawrence.
Marcus Lawrence.
DeMarcus Lawrence. They're on the outside. And a secondary that is just ball hawks. Like I said, they're a bunch of ball hawks. They're not the best corners in the world, but you give them ducks, they're going to take them back the other way. And you said, Tom, go do that against these young 22-year-olds for us and at 45 years old, and it just did not end well. To me, it solidified it was the end of his tenure in Tampa Bay. I don't understand how he can go back to there. If Todd Bowles is his coach, look, Todd Bowles, there's a reason why he was unsuccessful in New York. The guy didn't have.
It was New York, one. He didn't have any help when he was in New York. I don't know how much help he has in Tampa Bay, but I mean, that brings up, before we have the Brady side of the discussion, I have it up on the screen. I'm sure if we have if we have people crossing over to our show from We the Thunder for the couple times where we've been on there to talk hockey, I know that there's a lot of Buccaneers fans. They have their own Buccaneers show. I'm interested to see, 2 years ago, it was, what are you going to do? Because Jameis Winston just threw 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions in a season. And the solution was Bruce Arians is going to coach Tom Brady. You're going to have a badass defense, a hell of a running game, and win a Super Bowl. Okay, that works out. And Bruce Arians is going to hand the team over to his buddy, Todd Bowles, who he put on his staff for a reason. It's good for the league. It's a good look because you get another African-American head coach. I think that has to be said. 2 seasons now, 2 disappointing playoff runs. This year you don't get as far as last year, and you should not, everyone knows you should not have been in the playoffs. You squeaked out your division victory. I would have much rather seen the Lions in your space. I would have much rather seen a lot of other teams in the NFC in your place rather than the Cowboys having to go to Tampa Bay. What do the Buccaneers do? Do they move on from Todd Bowles? Do they maybe reassess where their coordinators are? Are they going to go get a quarterback? Especially, if Brady walks, they obviously have to go get a quarterback because I have no clue. I think Kyle Trask is the backup out of Florida.
Yeah, Kyle Trask is not going to be the starter there. I think they have Gabbert too, but still, neither one of those two are going to be the guy. Look, the quarterback market seems like it's going to be a thick one. Derek Carr is obviously available. You look at guys like Matt Ryan. Yes, is one Asian quarterback to another. He's going to be available. Carson Wentz, who knows what he's going to do? Available. There's guys around the league. Lamar Jackson possibly available. You put him with
that would be something. That's his hometown,
exactly.
Not Tampa, but he's from Miami, but it's close enough. You guys know what I'm talking about.
He could thrive there. So there's options, but I don't know if you're Tampa Bay. It's done. You had your championship with him. You cannot run him out there again. You cannot sign him again. You cannot do whatever you did this past year over again, because teams like, dare I say it, teams like the Saints, who will have another first-round draft pick, it seems, when Sean Payton is out, who are up on the come up. You have teams in your division that are all terrible, right? You got to think that you can still win this division next year, even without Tom. You just have to have someone like a Derek Carr that can be stable. And I'm not saying Derek Carr is stable, but if you're Tampa Bay, you have to be like, we still have a shot here. All you have to do is win your division. It's no longer the NFC least with 3 teams in the Final Four. It's the NFC way, way, way down south, and they ain't going up much farther. So put that on a T-shirt and write it down, because those boys, they can still win this division next year. And that's how poorly I think of the other 3 teams. And if you're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you cannot go into the season with Kyle Trask or Blaine Gabbert as your quarterback, or Tom Brady as your quarterback, in my opinion. You should just be happy with what happened to you and move on. Because right now, Tom should have been done by now. All Tom is trying to do right now is trying to beat Peyton Manning. And it brings me a smile saying that. All he's trying to do is go out on top. And he had his chance, but he didn't do it. And he said, I'm going to have a bigger ego and try to go out for 8 and do this and do that. And here we are, 45 years old, 4 or 5 year old, throwing 66 passes in a playoff game. Yeah, Tampa Bay, I think if anyone, you should be ready to move on, even more than Tom.
Bro should have left. I mean, ended on a hell of a season last year and could have won the division round easily, but still looked like a competent quarterback. This year does not look like that. I don't necessarily tend to agree with I actually definitely agree with Shannon Sharp. I was going to say I don't tend to agree with Skip Bayless, but I agree with Shannon Sharp on this side of it. I do think he's done. I think that it's over. I think the pumpkin is back. Cinderella, the clock has struck midnight. The glass slipper is off. There are generations of kids who have never known the NFL without Tom Brady in it, and that's wild to say. I think that it's good for the league ultimately when next year you don't have to worry about – I mean, you're going to get somebody new. We already see a lot of new blood in the playoffs. I texted you. I think I texted my dad too. Patrick Mahomes was the oldest quarterback at 27 years old on the AFC side.
Yeah, 45-year-old Tom Brady, and with his walker out there, you're stretching him out. Yeah, it's a new wave. It's a new wave in the playoffs. And for a guy like Tom Brady, I think he's done. But at the same time, do you really think he would have risked his marriage for 1 year? Do you really think
didn't he upgrade? I thought I've heard around different shows he upgraded. I know that she upgraded too, because it's easy to upgrade from Tom Brady, but I think they both moved on.
I know, but still, at the same time, it's like risking that for 1 year of football. No, I think he joins a big city. I think he goes to
the Jets.
The
Jets. No. Slays the dragon.
Yeah, no shot. Oh, I will. I don't know. I will do a podcast.
I need to pitch him a storyline.
I will do a podcast with just boxers on if he goes to the Jets. The likely teams, in my opinion, are Vegas. I think Vegas.
Oh, here's what we should do. Robert Saleh, Bill Belichick, ladder match, and at the top of the ladder is Brady's contract. Like how they did with Dominic.
I don't think Bill even wants him at this point. The only reason why he goes back there is to sign a 5-day or a 2-hour contract where he can retire as a Patriot. He's not going to play another down for the New England Patriots. I guarantee you. They don't want it. Bill doesn't want it. He doesn't want that at all. Like, he doesn't want Mac Jones either, but he sure as hell doesn't want 66 passes throwing Tom Brady. So I think he goes to Vegas. I think there's a strong possibility he could go back to San Francisco, where he grew up, being a 49er fan, watching Joe Montana, watching Steve Young. And yes, we could say the Brock Purdy run is magical and all this, but do you really think that if the 49ers get to the Super Bowl this year and lose, do you think that they can dangle out Trey Lance and be like, hey, come get him, and we'll take Tom Brady? And the Buccaneers wouldn't say, okay.
They want him. Nico, we're talking about all of this.
I don't think they want Trey Lance.
I guarantee you he does not want Tom Brady.
I don't know. The thing is
everyone knows what he's capable of.
If you get one game away from the Super Bowl and you lose the Super Bowl or you lose the NFC Championship,
that dude's not sitting on the bench. He will never be a backup quarterback.
I'm not saying Tom's a backup quarterback. I'm saying Tom will start. I'm saying you send Trey Lance to Tampa Bay. Who says no in that deal? Because, look, the San Francisco 49ers, what have we been saying, Jimmy, for this long? And this will segue into our Cowboys for 49ers talk. What have we been saying all along? This is a team that is ready for a Super Bowl. Absolutely ready for a Super Bowl. You add in Tom Brady to this team, and where he doesn't have to do much. The talent around him, the defense around him, dare I say, is similar to the Bucs and when they joined them, if not better. And if Brock Purdy gets you to the Super Bowl and you lose, do you want to go back to Garoppolo? Do you want to run a injured Trey Lance into the ground again, where the guy's only played 17 games in 5 years? I don't think so. And if Purdy doesn't win it all for you, and Brady's out there dangling, why not?
I would steer very, very clear of anything regarding Tom Brady when it comes to that kind of thing. He's like, to me, I think he's proven that he's done. I would think that I'm going to go clear my head down in Mexico is more real. I really think he came back because he got cuckolded out of making his announcement. Schefter got too big for his britches and announced it before he did, and he was upset about it. And we've been talking about the ego. I've been listening to these games on Sirius, and apparently he has a podcast, and it runs through Sirius XM. And the guy is just – I don't even think that he has conversations. He doesn't listen to the people that are on his show. He just talks and thinks that what he has to say is so important and profound and groundbreaking. He just talks to talk. But I do think that he's going to take time. I think he's going to seriously consider hanging it up. I see this as more of a legitimate will they, won't they scenario than Aaron Rodgers, because we had that discussion too. And I think Aaron Rodgers is literally just trying to win an Emmy at this point.
But
He's just going for a daytime.
I think the ego on Tom doesn't want to go out like that. And I guarantee you he's not returning to the Bucs.
I don't know if it goes out any other way at this point.
Jimmy, I think as bad as that was, and look, like it or not, we can joke about Gisele's and all this. Who does he have to come to home to right now? Just go out and date. He's gonna get bored. Like we joke about it. He's gonna get bored.
But he's gonna steal Greg Olson's job. That's what he's lined up to
Greg
do.
Olson's
Remember that?
job should not be taken. I think Greg Olson's a great commentator.
I know, but they threw all of that money. Like, he's got that guaranteed contract just sitting out there waiting. Just the same as Sean McVay. Sean McVay confirmed that he's coming back real quickly before we get into the Cowboys 49ers. But
I just don't think I think he should be done. I'm not saying that by any means, but I don't think he is.
All right. Let's finish things up. We have this last game to pick. So the way that it worked out, Niko did not have a perfect week. If you've heard the segment before, almost. He went 5 for 6. I went 4 for 6. Dallas saved me a little bit. It is a close race. Niko has 50 points total. I have 40 points total as it stands. Reminder, you guys might not need a reminder, but a reminder for Niko and myself. He has the Chiefs, the Eagles, and the Bills. I have the Chiefs, the Eagles, and the Bengals so far. So this last divisional game that you see on your screen, Cowboys at the 49ers, rematch of so many different NFC championship games. It's in the divisional round this time. I feel like Troy Aikman is happy. His heart fluttered a little bit when he saw this. Steve Young's heart fluttered a little bit when he saw this. Ronnie Lott's pinky started twitching. That's a deep cut for those big-time NFL fans like myself. Ronnie Lott's pinky is trembling, and the 49ers are favored by 4. So I guess let's go ahead and start from there. For this, you said you didn't like the other lines. What do you think of this line?
4,
as it stands
I love
now.
4, Jimmy.
That's what I thought.
4.
I figured you would.
I love 4 here. Look, the best thing for my betting sports book was San Francisco, or was Dallas blowing out Tampa Bay. Because if that game was at all close this line would have been like 6.5, 7. I'm worried. I am worried, though. A part of me thinks that the Cowboys can do this, but part of me thinks, oh, Niko, you also picked Toronto to win the playoffs last year in the first round. Don't be an idiot. Just the rules. All right, be smart here. I'm gonna go San Francisco. I said it 5 minutes ago. Yes, it was a day ago for me, but 5 minutes ago, I said I was going to San Francisco, and I still am. I would not be surprised at all if the Cowboys win this. Straight up at all. They can perform like they did, which I think is going to be a lot harder against a much, much better defense in San Francisco, then they can win this game. But you are playing a quarterback that is inexperienced, and you are playing a lot more weapons. There's a lot more people you have to guard, a lot more things that Parsons is going to be put in spots where he may not be rushing the passer all the time. He may have to guard McCaffrey out of the backfield. He may have to chip off of George Kittle. There's a lot of things that the 49ers can do that the Bucs couldn't against this Dallas defense. So for that reason, I have to go San Francisco. I want San Francisco Eagles an NFC Championship, and I think the Cowboys have this is as good of a Cowboys team as we've seen in a while. I want to say since Dez caught it. I want to say that's best team since then. And the talent this team has is unprecedented. But I just don't trust them right now. I trust this 49ers team and their ability to score whenever they want to and stop whoever they want to.
The amount of times Aaron Rodgers has killed the Cowboys playoff dreams is kind of comical at this point. I'm glad that you said you can see the Cowboys winning because I put it down before you said your 49ers pick. I'm going with the Cowboys. I'm kind of riding the hand, dance with the girl who brought you there. I want these 15 points. I want a 15-point lead on you. And the more I think about it, both defenses are miles better than what either team saw last week. We can both agree. We've both said that. And then it comes down to which quarterback do I think can stand up to this badass defense? And, well, I do think that the 49ers defense is more badass than the Cowboys defense. This is something Brock Purdy has yet to see. I know that he's played a lot. He's had a lot of regular season games. Yeah, he's 7-0 as a starter. Like, the guy is undefeated, and I'm going to say the opposite way. I think I can see the 49ers winning this game, and I've predicted a couple times that the Eagles and 49ers were going to play in the NFC Championship. But I said I was going to call Vince McMahon earlier. My call is going to be Dallas comes out off the top rope. They're going to break this curse of not getting to the NFC Championship game by beating their historical rival, and they're going to topple the San Francisco 49ers on home soil. I'm going to get, when we have the next Talk in the Gridiron, the Tyler and Brian of the TNB Sports Podcast here on the Variety Sports Network are going to be just livid with me that I said that, but I'm going with the Cowboys. I think
I do. Look, the Cowboys, in my opinion, they play like they did last week. I'll say it. I'll be the one. I'll be the one to raise my hand. That's a team that can win a Super Bowl.
Here's the thing. I still like your -4 for the 49ers, though. I think the Cowboys win. I like your -4 because I think the Cowboys could win by a field goal or by one.
Jimmy, I lose if the Cowboys win.
Okay. Well, then don't worry about what I'm saying. I'm a little bit, nervous and slap happy. I got a lot I don't have school to deal with tomorrow. We do have a snow day, which is nice. But I'm thinking about the fact that I have not eaten dinner yet. I still have to edit the show. I don't have to get up early, which is nice. I will get up and shovel, but that was a dumb thing that I said.
It's okay. We're 3 years, almost nearly 3 years of the show, and Betty Lanes are still tough. It's okay.
I didn't bet at all when we started this show. When we started this podcast, I had just barely learned what everything meant. And every now and then it flips back and forth. I was never good with the negative and positive numbers. I have to work with the math teacher at the middle school there. I think that we'll probably wrap it up for us. I think it was a good episode. Hopefully everyone enjoyed the previous part to this, where you heard about all of the other Super Wildcard Weekend games plus the predictions. Real quickly, one more last time. These divisional games are worth 15 points for each correct one. Kansas City, both of us. Philadelphia, both of us. Then we're split on the last two on Sunday. Niko picked Buffalo and San Francisco.
Sunday.
I picked
both Sunday games. Okay.
Yeah, I picked Cincinnati and Dallas. So we're gonna Bloody Sunday. We're gonna have it out. We're fighting it out and seeing who goes into the championship game with a little bit of a lead. Right now, Niko's got a 10-point advantage. But you got anything else that you want to leave the people with before? I think that these are going to be 4 pretty insane games. It's going to be must-watch television.
I think all 4 of these games are going to be absolutely electric factories. I'm serious. Like, Jacksonville, Kansas City may be the quote-unquote worst game of the weekend, but it's going to be fireworks because you don't know what the Jaguars can throw at these guys. And you you have division rivals. Again, the Giants and the Eagles going against each other. You have 2 teams that have enough storylines this year. And what happened 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Oh, yeah, a guy died.
Yeah, nearly 2 weeks ago.
But he did die twice.
Either way, and then you have one of the most storied rivalries in terms of NFC hopefuls and the history of football. It has everything you can want and so much more. And man, I'm going to be glued to my seat. It's going to be. I told my girl, I'm like, hey, I hope you don't have anything Saturday and Sunday to do because my butt will be sitting right on that couch and watching football the whole day, and I don't care who the hell wants to get me up for it. I will eat dinner on the couch. I will watch a movie on my phone with you if you need that. But sound comes from the football game. The football games will be on.
It's all that in a box of cookies. I think that's going to be the caption for this episode. We should make that a shirt. I think that should be our next shirt. Let's not involve our football teams because that could go very, very poorly very quickly. Yeah. Hopefully everybody, if you're a Bengals fan that listens to the show, stocked up on the Return to the Jungle shirts through Variety Sports Network. I think I've said it a couple times, but since we're wrapping things up, make sure you follow us at FEOTB Pod. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow the Variety Sports Network at Variety_Sports_. This Sunday, following the Bengals-Bills game, I will be live. I think I might force you into doing live with me since you picked the opposite of that game. And I'm going to break down everything, the Live from the Jungle series. You guys will be able to watch that live Sunday on our Twitter and our YouTube channel, and then you'll be able to listen and then watch again on all podcasting platforms. So subscribe, follow, new episodes every Thursday, and check out the Variety Sports Network and their sponsors. But for that, episode 123 of the Far End of the Bench podcast, for myself, Jimmy Pilato, my co-host, Nico Bryant, thank you very much for tuning in. We will see you guys next week.
Peace.
If you don't stay down and you never quit, come on over here and sit on the far end of the bench.